Welcome everyone to today's alumni panel discussion. I am Quinn Lightfoot. I am serving as the president of American Marketing Association on campus. This is Bella Crew-Wagner, and she is currently serving as the vice president. Today we'll be your MCs and asking the panelists questions.
So to start today, we're going to have our recipients introduce themselves. We're going to start down the line all the way, starting with Isaac. And what we want from you guys is to say the year you graduated, your degree, and the award you are receiving. And also, along with that, please share your favorite memory of your time at UWL. Isaac, do you want to start?
Yes, thank you. My name is Isaac Hoffman. I graduated from UW-La Crosse in 2007 with a degree in sociology, and I currently work at La Crosse County Human Services. I'm the director of the La Crosse Area Family Collaborative, and do some family and child-based social work programs in the city and throughout the county. My favorite memory of UWL, this is, I should have thought of this. I was asked that earlier today in a classroom as it relates to my career and what's something that sticks out, and it's I'm not trying to bail on the question, but honestly it's I think back, and when I reflect, it's been awesome reflecting leading up to this weekend, but it's really the collection of times. There's not a single negative moment or interaction that I can remember. It's all positive, supportive, and so I'm super appreciative of that. So not a single moment that I can recall right now. If something pops in my head later, I'll definitely share, but that's all I have.
I'm Chris Fritz, and I'm in the education area, namely a physical educator. And I have worked extensively for 34 years at the 7th through 12th grade level. And then when I retired, I went and worked for another 12 years at the pre-K level because I was asked to do that by an administrator in my building to help set up that particular area. I am receiving the Altman Excellence in Education Award. And I guess my outstanding memory of La Crosse, I was provided with a very sound foundation for going into education. But my favorite memory is from Dr. A.B. Culver when she was one of my professors. She came into one of our classes one morning with registration forms for our professional association. And at the time, she said, here are the forms for Woppard and AFERD, which is now WHPE, and SHAPE. And she said, it would probably be good if some of you people decided to join. I did, and I have had ad infinitum response from being part of that professional association. And I'd like to thank the university. I'd like to thank Dr. A.B. and all the alumni people that are putting this convocation on, because it shows that we can be united in education, work together. The gentleman sitting to my left, who is also receiving the same award, spoke this morning, and he emphasized we, not I, we. And that's what La Crosse has done for me.
I was hoping not to go after her. I said, hopefully I can speak before her tomorrow. She's awesome. Mark Gruen, also receiving the Altman, honored to be here. I'm a superintendent in Johnson Creek School District for 2 years, 12 years before that at Royal. Before that I was at Aleva Strum. I've been a superintendent, curriculum director, business manager, middle school principal, elementary principal, high school principal, bus driver, custodian, and I've cleaned up a lot of puke. My favorite memory at UWL, which would be a completely personal memory for me, sitting in the Union studying one night, a group of us, all confident young men, came up with a contest, the Big Man, Macho Man, Tough Man contest of 1991. And then we competed. It was unbelievable fun, and it bonded the six of us for life. So life memory. Thank you.
All right, hello everyone. Jasmine Holland, she, her pronouns. I currently serve as the Assistant Director for Student Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Programming at Edgewood College. And I graduated from UWL in 2015 with my undergraduate in organizational professional communication, and then completed my master's degree in 2021 in the Student Affairs Administration program. I would say that one of my fondest memories was having the opportunity to travel to Ghana, Africa with our student organization, Black Student Unity, from here at La Crosse. A lot of us, we just kind of got together and decided that this is what we wanted to do. We worked with a lot of the campus partners, the International Education Office, Psychology Department, had a lot of support from the campus, and honestly, yes, one of the most rewarding, exciting, memorable moments of my life that I will have forever. So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Colleen McDowell. I am currently an assistant professor in the Department of Ophthalmology and Visual Sciences at UW-Madison. I graduated from UW-La Crosse in 2004, and I'm receiving the RADA Distinguished Alumni Award. I think my favorite memory from UWL is publishing my very first research manuscript with the late Dr. David Howard, who was my research mentor here when I was on campus. And that really laid the foundation for me for my research career and got me interested in research and wanting to pursue a PhD.
My name is Neil Dureski. I graduated in 1964 with majors in economics and political science. I'm getting the Maurice O'Graff Distinguished Alumni Award. Favorite moment here is when our fraternity won the Song Fest.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Bosch. I'm currently the CEO at TrustPoint. I'm one of those long-time, never left TrustPoint people. I've been there for 23 years. I started as an intern. I graduated in 2000, and my degree was in finance. My favorite memory is I met and married my wife, Tracy, at UW-La Crosse. And so we've been married for almost 21 years now. And my other favorite memory, that's the most important one, but my other favorite memory is one night we volunteered at a haunted trail down in Coon Valley, and it was a whole group of us from our dorm, and we just had a great night, and I still remember that very well. So thank you.
Now we are going to move into some individual questions, and each recipient will have a different answer, or a different question, I should say. We're going to start with Isaac again. Can you tell us about your work history and how you got to where you are right now?
Yeah, thank you. Work history really kind of started with my sociology degree. I originally started down the business path, and for no reason other than that's what felt normal. That's what I grew up around, and so that's what I did. And then through different work experiences, I decided that wasn't the passion that I had and what I had wanted to do for a career. And so I did some work with kids at a residential treatment center here locally, and that led me to social work and connecting to parents and wanting to prevent them to future kids to have to go down that path. And so that led me to social work, and then specifically child protection. And so I switched very late in the game and found a path to become a social worker through a sociology degree here. And there's a way to get a license beyond that. And so it was really through experience, work experience, and taking time to really figure out what I wanted to do for a career. And so that's what led me to the sociology department and that degree. As far as my career, I said it was very laid out. I worked at La Crosse County Human Services doing child protective services work for 8 years, and that was rewarding. And I think we did a lot of good work and continue to do a lot of good work. But then our county switched gears a little bit and wanted to focus on prevention, which is kind of rare at the human services level because there's not a lot of dollars to go around to do new things. And we were part of a program that launched in 2016 called the La Crosse Area Family Collaborative, which is a neighborhood-based social work program, and that's aimed at connecting with families and providing supports before they might need those deeper end involvement with child protective services or other deep end support. So that's been my career. It's been all primarily at the Human Services Department here in La Crosse County, and I live in Holman now, so I still remain in the area, obviously, and yeah.
All right, thank you. Now moving on to our next panelist. Your question is, what is the most important advice you have ever received?
Most important advice? I think we got a lot of information on how to do this and how to do that and skills and this and that and help and do. But I think the most important thing was something that we're embracing in education nowadays with the kindness piece and relationships. And we learned how to relate to each other and how to get along. This morning I mentioned in one of the sessions that I would have 4 things that I would offer the students. Get involved, stay involved, take some leadership, collaborate, and probably don't forget in the end piece to be gratified or to show gratefulness for what you have been given and to thank others while you're collaborating. And it was just proven to me in the short conversation I had with Dr. Gao here. We congratulated him for his upcoming retirement and slide path to little less responsibility. And he was quick to point out, we did this. And he gave credit to his financial person for all the accomplishments that have gone on here at La Crosse. So I think that kind of mentoring that I got in relationship to that, listen and try to take that advice, but also be adventuresome and step out on your own.
Thank you. For the next panelist, the question for you is, do you have any regrets regarding your education?
Hey. Well, in preparing for today, my brother told me that I have a lot of regrets that I probably shouldn't bring up at the panel, he said. You know, I do a little bit. You know, I grew up on a family farm. And so, and I'll speak to this real briefly tomorrow. My mom didn't graduate high school. Neither did 3 of her brothers or sisters. My dad says he did. We have no evidence of that. So, you know, I grew up where we never talked about college. It never was brought up, ever. We weren't in the house to even watch college football on Saturday because we were out working on the farm. And so when I packed up the car and drove up here, I would then go home a lot of times on the weekend and work. And when I had my own kids go to college, I told them, you know, don't plan on coming home. Enjoy it all. Enjoy the weekends. Enjoy the work that they put in at the dorm for you to do something special on the weekend. And so my regret was not doing more. You know, I wrestled a year. I was on the student senate. I ran the elections. Of course, we invented the big man, tough man, macho man contest. But I wish I would have done even more. I wish I would have taken in more of the football games and the basketball games and gotten more involved, like you're talking about with the leadership groups. And so my advice to young people is to just endure, you know, and surround yourself with all of it, because it's all a life experience. So my regret would be not getting more involved at a young age.
Thank you. Okay, our next question for our next panelist is, how long after graduation was it before you found a career you truly loved? Was it in the same field that you got your degree in or in another?
Good question. I would say that it took me about 4 years to find a career that I loved. Again, I graduated in 2015 with my undergraduate, and so in 2019 is when I started one of my favorite roles, and that was working with our pre-college program, Upward Bound. And would I have ever imagined being in that position, being in a role where I was working with students from the community? No. But I came to school to be a pharmacist, and then I realized that I did not enjoy biology that much. So I, yes, majored in communication, and I, like most college students, did not know what I wanted to do with that degree. I knew that, I wanted to have a degree and to graduate college, but where, when, I did not know. And so working in Upward Bound, being able to give back to the community is something that really feeds my soul. And to be able to have high school students come in and watch them, go throughout the years and then go off to college was one of the most empowering and most, soul-feeding experiences of my life. So I'm not sure, did I answer your question? Okay.
That was a great answer, by the way. The next question for the next panelist is, how do you achieve balance between work and personal life?
That's another great question. Well, for me, I have two children. They're now 9 and 11, and I had my oldest right as I was finishing up my postdoc, and then my youngest while I was still a junior faculty at University of North Texas when we lived down there. And I think for me, the advice would be, which I actually tell most of my students, is work hard, play hard. So I try to put in, when I'm in the lab and in my office, I'm working, so then I can clock out at 5 and be home and be present with my kids. So I do bring work home. It's not that I never do, but I usually wait until they're in bed or they're doing something else so I can truly focus on them when they're around. So I'd say just time management and make sure that your priorities are straight. And, I do, my kids have a field trip they really want me to go to or this or that. I'm grateful I'm in a position that can be flexible, that I can do those things as well. So.
Great. Okay, what was the hardest part about adjusting to life after graduation, in your opinion?
I can't really say there was any difficult part adjusting to life after graduation. It just sort of everything carried on, and everything I did flowed from one thing to the other, and had no problem with it.
The next question we have, what was the best thing you did for your career in college?
Well, that's a really great question. Guess I'd probably come back to, I worked a construction job when I was in college, and I would work 20 to 30 hours a week, and I got to learn a new skill set there as well. And it was one of those, it was a construction job, so we were there, we worked hard, and we played hard. But I guess that would be the biggest thing that I did to get ready for post-college.
Okay, we're going to start all the way on the end again. What is something that you wish you had known before graduating and starting your career?
Aside from, I don't regret being 6 credits away from having a marketing degree and then switching to sociology, although it would have been maybe a little beneficial in the long run to do that sooner. Aside from that, that question about work-life balance, I think that really struck me because that took me a few years to figure out, and I think if I don't know how you do that, how you assimilate that until you're in it, but if there's maybe some ways to prepare for post-college life and transition into that career, and that's a really important one that I see some people not do so well, and they might burn out in their job or career, and and that takes its toll. So that question really resonated with me, and I think would be something that would be cool to pay attention to prior to heading out into the world.
That's awesome. Thank you. The next question is, if you could start all over again, would you change your career path at all, and or why? If you could change your career path.
I'm not sure that I would change my career path, but truthfully, the one thing, when I was at La Crosse, we could student teach, or they started with the internship. And the internship was a bold step. You actually went off campus and you got paid for teaching. I was an intern in Green Bay for, I think it was 3 classes. And the reason that I took the internship was I wanted nothing to do with teaching elementary physical education. And talk about changing a career path. Probably the most fun that I've had was the last 12 years that I spent in pre-K. And I thoroughly enjoyed teaching high school and coaching. And that was one of the reasons that I didn't want to deal with little kids, because I was never around little kids. So be open to career path changes and be open to things that might take you in another direction in your chosen field, because I think you'll find there's rewarding things through the whole spectrum.
Great, thank you. Okay, I know you mentioned a lot of different positions that you've been a part of, but for our next panelist, what skills are required in maybe one of those positions, or maybe a common skill required in those positions used on a day-to-day basis?
I got an easy one. I'd say relationship building is essential in all walks of leadership and in all walks of life. I'm going to speak to that tomorrow in my speech about the fact that if you are not willing to build relationships, if in education, and probably professions could speak to that, but in my profession, you need to have people trust you, and I think the root of that is building that relationship so that they'll work with you. So I think that goes across the board. That might be a generic answer for all professions, in that people are people.
For the next panelist, what skills are required in your position on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I will echo that, is having those people skills, being able to talk with my students, and just be able to relate to them just as normal human beings. It's so simple. It's so simple. It's a basic conversation, and it's understanding that just as we have had our different walks of life and have gone through, different things, it's the same thing with our students. They're also going through things as well too, and to be able to give them that time to open up to us and reach them where they're at the way that they need to. That is something that I try to do every day with our students, and I think that it is very, that they really do appreciate that as well.
Perfect, thank you. What parts of your job do you find most challenging for our next panelist?
I think the hardest part about my job is grant funding and getting funding from the government and foundations and convincing people that the research is important and they should give me money to do it. So.
How many hours do you work in a typical week?
That's easy. Very, very few. I'm in 4 bands, so I probably play on average of 2 hours a day if you go through the week and average it out. But last weekend I spent in 3 days playing 5 gigs, 10 hours total playing. So that sort of averages it out. Other than that, I have no job.
Awesome, thank you. For our next panelist, what qualifications do you seek in a new hire?
Well, that question actually came up earlier today in our ICP class. One of the assumptions is that one of the assumptions people have is that we're looking for a really high GPA, and that's why that's important. We really want people that are well-rounded, who are involved, and who know how to work and want to work. And we just think that that's so important because we can train for so many other skill sets, but we don't have this, big list of requirements that we're looking for people to join us.
For the next question, and we're going to go back to Isaac. What part of your job do you find the most enjoyable?
There's a lot. The relationship piece is a huge part of what I do, and I look at that as a challenge sometimes, is how can I build a strong relationship, whether it be with a kid or a family, is to help move them forward, or with a partner, so we can do more work together. So that's a big one, when I'm able to build a strong relationship and see things grow, whatever it is we're working on. So I would say that one initially, but then thinking a little bit more as I'm babbling here, I train social workers now, and I think it's really, really rewarding to see somebody grow in their skill set to be able to help others, and being able to like just be a part of that's been really rewarding for me.
Okay, for our next question, who was the most influential person in life when getting to where you are now?
I think there's several influences. They come from a multifaceted situation, and I'm not sure I can identify one. I think it comes from the family, comes from home, comes from your colleagues, comes from the friends, the people that are around you. At one given moment in time, they talk about how sociology or psychology here, you act differently. We're dressed and quietly sitting in here in this audience, but in a different situation, we might be up running around in shorts and t-shirts. So I don't know if I can identify a most.
Are there any negatives or challenges with the position you currently have or have had in the past?
I want Isaac's question. I will answer Isaac's question, but then I'll answer this one too. I work in a school, and anytime that I get a little rundown on the business end or the grind, I'm able to get up and go down to elementary school and participate in what I call unconditional love. Because kids in the elementary love you no matter what, every single day, and they're always happy to see you. And I got the best compliment from a parent the other day. She said her daughter came home and said, "Mr. Gruen has a smile for everyone." That's priceless. I think I do. Do I have challenges? Yes. This crazy game that I'm in, being a public school leader, has become political, and it shouldn't be. There should be no politics involved with kids. We all love kids. We all want what's best for them. It's a common interest. I don't know how that can even be debated. And so that's challenging for me. It's challenging. Everyone doesn't see that. Public school, private school, kids are kids. So that's a challenge for those of us that are ingrained in it and have made it our life's work that we're committed to. Not to get political, but to give a school district no new money for 2 years in a row and ask them to survive. I don't even understand who could do that. Who is able to do that? I mean,
What were you thinking?
yeah, what were they thinking? That's exactly right. So there's a lot of challenges. And then on top of those, lead people and not drag them bureaucracy that is put on our plates as leaders. The vast majority of our educators went into education to serve kids and serve families and to write things in the world and to be that brick, that solid foundation for the kids. And so I don't want them to have to be stressed by the weights that politics put on us. So I would say that's me trying to protect my staff so that they can do what's right for kids.
All right, our next question is, could you describe one of your typical work days?
Okay, a typical work day for me is I come into the office and about 20 minutes in, I have about 3 students that come by and they either have a question about financial aid or they have a question or just want to complain about how hard school is already going. And so, needing to make space for that. And then a couple of meetings, take my lunch break, back to the office, more complaints, more stories, and then in the midst of all that, try to find time to actually get my task list done for the day. And typically leaving the office a little bit after 5 because, of course, you can't end your day without one more student popping in to, complain. So that's always fun.
For the next panelist, if you didn't major in the major that you had, what would you have majored in, or would you have stayed the same?
That's a good question. Well, I'll cheat on the question a little bit. So I minored in math. So if I hadn't majored in cell biology and biochemistry, I probably would have majored in math. Not sure what I would have done with it, but I minored because I enjoyed calculus of all things. So I enjoyed math, so probably.
Okay, what would you look for if you were in the position to hire new graduates?
I'd look for somebody who had good grades, doesn't need to be a 4.0, but good grades, so they show some emphasis in achieving a good education. I'd look for someone who'd been in an internship and someone who'd had a number of volunteer opportunities in the community.
What type of applicants are most successful entering into your career field?
Well, we have a number of our people with a wide variety of degrees. So they're not all business or finance or accounting like one might think. We have people that maybe have a degree in psychology or marketing. We have somebody with history. And really, how we think about it is we can train people the skills for the job. We want them to have a degree because we know they can, that challenges their critical thinking aspect of it. But we can train for all those other skill sets. And we really just want to make sure that people know how to think. And because so much of what we do is not plain vanilla, we have to get creative and work through a lot of different solutions. And so we just think that's really important.
Okay, now back to the end. Are you a part of any professional organizations? If you are, have they impacted your career?
No. Joke but true. I am a part of a handful of local boards and foundations, and so not a professional foundation in that or association in that way. But I think there's a lot of similarities in terms of getting involved, doing some things that are maybe outside of your regular work schedule or cycle, being a part of another group. Networking and just building relationships with different people is huge. And those are similarities with those types of associations and foundation work as well. So I definitely am engaged and involved on a different level and a little bit outside of my work, which is super, super important. And it also is a good, back to that balance piece. It's just breaking up your day, giving you something else to look forward to, building other skills and meeting other people. So.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Are there any other panelists that are maybe part of a professional organization that like to share their experience? If not, that's okay too.
I'm not sure. There's a lot of things that go into making a whole or a complete person. And if you change some things, if you're willing to grow and learn, that was one of the things that I would emphasize through teaching.
Okay, for the next panelist, what is a quote you live by?
I'll sub in here. I tell people, do not take criticism from people that you wouldn't take advice from. Right? Don't take criticism from someone that you wouldn't get advice from. So most people just talk.
Okay, next question. What advice could you give to overcome struggles that people might face along the way of their career path?
Well, if you're going to overcome something, you have to be willing to ask for help. And we talked a little bit, and we're kind of kibitzing back and forth here, but willingness to grow. We're in education. And truthfully, just in our interaction that we've had in the morning and the day, I thought I knew him when I saw his name in the publication stuff because I work with my professional association, and we've done things at the Wisconsin Association of School Boards. And I know he's been at our sessions, and we talked and kibitzed back and forth, and I said, I really would like to have been working for him as a teacher in his superintendency. So work together.
So I'm just going to start repeating some of the questions, just so you know. Okay. The first question that I'm going to start repeating is, what or how many hours do you typically work in a work week for you?
I'm not probably a good one to ask this because I'm not a great balancer of work and home. That would be a weakness in mine. But part of it is because once I was ingrained into my job, my kids were there a lot already. So the question is, do you count going to sporting events at night as work? Well, my kids are playing. It's not really work, but pretty much every time I'm there, I get a job or two. So it's kind of work. So, it mixes. So in essence, my commitment to the profession is, most of the time 70 plus hours a week. But I enjoy a lot of it. So it's not really fair to say.
That's okay. Okay, for the next panelist, what do you think prepared you the most between the transition between college and a career?
What prepared me the most between college and my career was trusting my gut, honestly. When I graduated, I got into the field and started working and trying to figure out what was it that I wanted to do. And when I got into certain jobs, listening to that gut feeling, does this feel right? And not really taking other people's critiques as, to help me make that decision or not. I went off of what felt right to me. And so when I found what, made me feel good, I stuck with that.
Okay, we are now going to open it up to questions from the audience. Monica has a microphone. She'll be running around the room, and then panelists will answer the questions.
This is for Neil. Turn it on.
Oh, it's on. Speak close to it.
Neil, what's been the most challenging part of all of the things you've done since you graduated?
Wow, that's a good question. No, I'm serious. The most challenging was being president of the school board for 8 years, especially when just prior to the election of 1992 to just following the election of 1993, we had 4 school board presidents and 19 school board members because of something called a recall. And I became the president in 93 and was honored to be the president until 2001. But it was a challenge because there are people who didn't want to learn about education who had been elected, those who weren't willing to go to state school board association meetings or conferences. And fortunately, Dick Swantz, the superintendent at that time, took 3 of us who were elected in April of 1992 to a Wisconsin Association of School Boards seminar in Black River Falls, where we had some school board member 101. And I eventually became president of the State School Board Association.
Are there any other questions from the audience?
It's on? It's on, this dang mic. I have another question for Neil, just because you were you've had such a decorated career if you read your little bio. So if you would just talk a little bit more about your, you shared that you're in a band, but I'm more curious about what you've, pre-retirement, what did your world look like?
Pre-retirement, I had been in the Naval Reserve from high school through college, kept getting deferments. The Navy wouldn't give me a commission. So I went in the Air Force for 4 years. Because I had the outstanding grade point average of 2.26 and a degree in econ poli-sci, they made me a nuclear weapons officer. So after 4 years, I got out, and after a couple years, came back here in the college student personnel program. And while I was interning in the placement office, Dr. Harvey Ideas recommended that I take the Federal Service Entrance Exam, so I did that and spent a career with the Internal Revenue Service as a revenue officer, which is a fancy way of saying tax collector. And thank you for sharing. And in the meantime, also I transferred to the Wisconsin Air National Guard following active duty, retired as an aircraft maintenance squadron commander. And then when I was done with my IRS career, I became executive director of the Red Cross for 3 years till I had a hip replacement. Let's see, what else? There's other stuff too. I was on the school board for 17 years. I'm currently on the aviation board in my 8th year. I do a lot of military honors details for funerals with the Legion, play in 4 bands, have 5 children, 11 grandchildren. There's probably something else, but it escapes me at the moment. But it was fun. I mean, and when I said it was a seamless transition before I met it, everything just seemed to flow and it came naturally. So I had good mentors. In the Air Force, the first person I worked for was an editor who had Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico, had edited a nuclear weapons safety study. And he showed me the right way to do technical writing. And and regular letter writing too, because my grade point average indicated that I really didn't concentrate that well while I was here.
One thing for Neil, I believe you were also a parade marshal and involved with Oktoberfest.
That slipped my mind. I'm president of the parade marshal group, so.
I know it's fest time in La Crosse, so I wanted to mention that. I do have a question for Colleen, though. You mentioned earlier about a summer internship that you had that was very instrumental in your career. I believe that was a DDF. Do you want to talk about that and what that means and what it meant for your career?
Sure. So the summer between my sophomore and junior year of college, I wanted to stay in La Crosse and not go back home for the summer, but in order to do that, I needed a job. And a friend of mine actually had seen a flyer around campus of a summer research program where you could apply, and I believe they gave us $3,000 for the summer, and you got to pair with a research mentor, and I was in the biology department, to do summer research. And honestly, at the time, I didn't know anything about research. I didn't even really know what it meant. But I took the flyer to my advisor's office, Dr. Howard, and said, hey, I'm interested. Like, what is this? So he explained it to me, and I applied, and I was fortunate enough to get the summer research fellowship, so I could afford to stay in La Crosse for the summer. And really, that made my career. I don't think I would have ever known what research was or that it was actually a career path had I not needed a job that summer. And I ended up staying and working with Dr. Howard for the rest of my undergraduate career. So I stayed with him through the end of my senior year, and he helped me apply to graduate school, and that's history from there. So.
This question also come out of that ICP class earlier. Oh, sorry. They actually talked about that in presentations. We shouldn't use acronyms. It's the Integrated Core Program. So, but I know there's a whole group of them over there. So I think that it's been hit on earlier, but I think that you should just really get involved. And we talked quite a bit about volunteering and giving back earlier in that class I was in. And I just think that's so important, and it helps you make connections and learn different things beyond your curriculum. And I guess that's one thing I'll just talk about is just get involved more.
This question is for Jasma. People have an idea when they start a job what it will be like. Could you give an example of something that was unexpected, that was a pleasant surprise, and maybe something that was unexpected and not so pleasant?
Oh, okay. I would say that expected. Okay, so in my current job, I do a lot of programming for our students. I do a lot of Heritage Month programming, events, and whatnot. And so I think when you imagine programs and events, a lot of times people are seeing the finished product. So all of the like glitz and glam and all of that good stuff. But the logistics is what, it really gets you. Dealing with budgets or dealing with reservations and, speakers and whatnot, kind of dropping out, like learning how to juggle all of those things that could possibly go wrong. Was a struggle, but I think I'm doing all right with it. But having to do it full time all the time is something where, you have to have tough skin a lot of the times because you just have to. The show must go on. And then I would say on the flip side, I actually do enjoy budgets right now. In the beginning, I was like, oh no, numbers, budgets, money, that was a little intimidating. But now for me, that's one thing that I really enjoy having. I need to know, what's my money looking like? How do I divvy it up? What can I do? Where can I collaborate? How can we make this stretch in order to create something meaningful and intentional for our students? And so where in the beginning of my career, I tried to shy away from that, I'm at the point now where I'm like, let's talk money. So yeah.
Are there any other questions from the audience that anyone has?
Thank you. This question is for Jasma. So as you were talking about programming, I mean, I also do some programming here. So I guess my question is, how have you been able to navigate and deal with bureaucracy? Let's say you come up with an initiative or some form of idea, and they're like, "Hey, this is the rule, and you can't do it." So how do you respond to hearing that no?
You asked me this question with the chancellor in the room. Honestly, I approach it by understanding what both sides want. Administration wants one thing, and the students want something different. So if we're not, meeting in the middle on our initial wants and needs, let's do the work to make sure that both sides are getting what they need out of this. And so that is how I approach a lot of the work that I do now is, pulling out like that data, pulling out testimonials from, for our students, marketing pieces, also kind of bringing it back to new initiatives, bringing it back to the institutional goals and values. And so with that, I'm appealing to the institution's views and whatnot, but I'm also appealing to and reaching the goals that the students actually need. And so it's really trying to do my best with meeting in the middle so that everybody wins.
All right, this is for all of you. I went to 5 institutions of higher learning across the United States after I finished my undergrad. I'd like to know how you deal with the letters asking for money since you've graduated. Do you have a criteria that you use? Do you give to all of them? Well, it's understood you're going to give to UWL.
I will go down the row. That's a great question, actually, and it's something I've struggled with from time to time because initially I had this, it doesn't happen incredibly often, but I felt obligated to spread some stuff out, but now as I'm starting to learn a bit more, I go all in on things I'm super passionate about. And things that I believe in and are core values of me and my family. And so that's a great question. I've spent a lot of time thinking about that. So things that I'm passionate about that I really, really, truly believe in as opposed to just doing.
Dr. Culver is still testing me 50 years later. I guess I would agree that you have to be passionate. When I was the Midwest District President, I was asked to establish a theme, and my theme was live your passion. And basically that's what I've tried to do. You can question others, but you have to know where you're going and what it is you want to accomplish, and not from an egotistic point of view, but how you want to help students grow, especially in the education area. And I said this morning to the students, don't be afraid to challenge a colleague that you think is using a contraindicated practice. And that's tough. But you have to live within yourself.
I don't really have a lot to add to those two. I think they're awesome answers. It's a family decision, and a lot of things go into it. I have a passion for education, but I also have a wife who fought breast cancer, so we're pretty committed to that cause also. So a lot goes in. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add, if it fits in my budget, we'll make it work. So, yeah.
So I'm currently at my 4th institute of higher education. So I do get a lot of those emails, so I had to chuckle when you mentioned it. But I think I'll steal Isaac's answer too. It's really focusing on what I'm most passionate about. Being in a lot of different departments and different programs, you get to know sort of what their priorities are and where that money or donation's going to go. So focusing on the scholarships that I know are really going to change the life of a student or a program and actually bring something different to the table or offer an opportunity that wouldn't otherwise exist. So,
among UWL and others, I give to the La Crosse Public Education Foundation, the Logan High Alumni Association, and most prominently the American Banjo Museum.
The only thing I would add is that we have been using giving back or donating to various organizations as a way to get our kids involved in money and what it means to give money away to different organizations. And so it's been interesting to get them involved and hear their perspective on where they want to give money to. And that's just been a really good strategy for us.
Bill, so I was an intern this summer, and I thought it was really cool that you started as an intern and you're now the CEO. So what do you attribute to your success from starting as an intern and moving all the way up to CEO?
I would say being open to trying different things. I bounced around to a bunch of different departments. I say bounced around, but it was intentional that I moved there. For a while, I thought they were just trying to get rid of me, but they weren't. But I've also had a lot of different experiences that I was willing to put my hand up for. And in our job or in our role, sometimes when people pass away, we have to walk in the shoes of the decedent. And in 2 different instances, I had to run a cooking store for about 18 months until we sold it. And we had inherited about a team of 30 people with that. I had to run a movie theater for about 2 years while I was going through litigation, and we ultimately sold that. And so just putting my hand up and being willing to tackle those jobs, and those are never easy. I have no experience running a cooking store or a movie theater, but I had to figure it out. But those set me up to be able to tackle future things down the road. So I would just say, just be willing to try different things and take on different responsibilities.
All right, well, thank you everybody for coming here. Thank you to our award recipients for sharing their experience at La Crosse with us. We really appreciate it. And thank you to the audience and everybody asking questions. There are refreshments in the back, so we encourage everybody to get some refreshments and socialize a little. And yeah, thank you.